truthfully, it's like that was just the stepping stone. So how often are we just on that stepping stone, but we don't look to actually hop to the next one because we're trying to be what everybody else is in the space that we are. We don't see that we actually are meant to expand beyond this, that this is not the final step for us. Hello there, it's Mandy Woodard, and this is Courageous Conversations. The show is all about our life journey and the growing and healing we go through. Sometimes it takes great courage to step out of where we are and choose a different path. I started this show because I wanted you to know that you are not alone, no matter where you are in your life journey. And my hope is that you will hear a story that I share or a conversation that I have, and you will get something out of it. You will have an aha moment or a realization, and you'll know what you need to do, because it is my belief that we are all here to help each other grow and become the best version of ourselves and find what our purpose is. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Let's get started. Hello, love. Thanks for joining me today. It is April 4th, and this is episode 22. Should I not sing? I should probably not sing. I tried once in the mic. I tried to sing a little bit and do a little auto-tune. I was like, yeah, that's not your path, Mandy. That is not your path. And that's okay. That's all right. So, how are you? That's the question, right? How are you? I hope you're well as you listen to this. I am well. I've taken a lot of time to rest this week. Well, full disclosure, I'm recording this the Thursday before you hear it. So I went through a string of working several days in a row. So this week that I'm recording this, I have made a point to rest a good bit. In fact, Tuesday, I did not even get out of the bed. I took 3 naps and it was glorious. And, one of the mental blocks we have is around rest and feeling like if we do, then we're doing something wrong. I'll be so honest, it's hard for me too, even though I know that it's a need for me. I have to. But especially after working so many days in a row. I had a Reiki training weekend where I had a few people come to my house to learn Reiki 1 and 2, and it was so amazing. I loved it so much. I loved teaching, but I'm pouring my energy into that, and so I needed to rest afterwards. I went right into Monday working, recording an interview for the podcast, the one that you heard last week with Alexia. So yeah, just a busy time, and then we don't want to stop. That's pretty common. We don't want to stop. We feel like we have to always be productive. And that's a mindset. That's a fixed mindset. It's a scarcity mindset. It's a scarcity mindset to believe that if you stop, everything else will stop. It's a fixed mindset as well because you're believing things are just one way. When we want to expand our way of thinking and know that we can take a day off and it's okay. And it doesn't have to just be a Saturday and Sunday, because a lot of times people are off on Saturdays and Sundays but don't believe that they deserve a weekday off. A lot of times you need to take a weekday off. So that's what's been going on with me, and I kind of just wanted to throw that in there. I feel like it's going to tie into the topic today. And I'm not sure what to call this episode yet. I'm hoping by the time I'm done recording, it comes to me. I know what I want to talk about though, and that is blocks, mental blocks, energetic blocks, things that are keeping you from progressing and hitting your goals. And it feels like a very broad topic, but also feels very similar to being stuck, having that mindset that you're stuck, which I just recorded an episode about that, if you missed it, episode 20. But what I have to share today is different. It's a little different than that. So let's talk about it. Let's dive into this. A lot of times people come to me, and even myself, like, let me start by speaking for myself. The first thing that I ever talked to my life coach about was there's a money block. I have a money block. I was so certain that I had this energetic block around money because I always felt like I couldn't break the cycle of making and then spending and then making and then spending and, or not making enough. That was the other thing. I felt like I was on this bottom line income bracket as a business owner, and I could not get over a hump. And it's funny though, because I hired a life coach thinking that she was going to just tell me this one thing. I just need to know this one thing, and then I'll be all good. Like, that is the mindset that I went into my coaching with. Oh my gosh. Was I ever so wrong to do that? Like, I mean, are we wrong? We all have our lessons. We all have our life paths, and that was mine. So I had to be able to go into it like that to experience what I experienced, to have the growth that I had. But a lot of times clients will come to me with the same. Like, I have this one problem. I just need to fix this one thing. I need to get over this one hump. And whether it's finances or work stress or whatever, it's never just the one thing, right? And actually, before I move on, I want to tell you what my life coach even said to me about that money block, because she was looking at it totally from a mindset perspective. And she said, it's because you're saying you want to make money and not that you want to build wealth. And money is a 5-cent word and wealth is a 50-cent word. And I did think that that was super cool. I love that. I still say it to people when they talk to me about this, is it's the way you are thinking about it is very small, and we want to expand that way of thinking about it. And as I say this, I realize that this is really true for every area of our life. Is there a block there, or are you just thinking a little too small? Do you need to expand your thinking? So me going to her and being like, give me the answer. What's the one thing that I need to know to have this other thing? I have now learned through my work, through listening, through taking in information from other coaches, other therapists, that it really all comes back to just knowing who you are. Now, I wasn't making money because I wasn't in the space that I was meant to be in. I didn't know who I was. I was trying to model behaviors of the people around me and do what they were doing, and that wasn't in alignment with me. That wasn't what was right for me. Now, back then, 2018, you weren't going to tell me that. You were going to say, hey, that's because you're not in the right space. I didn't want to hear that. And honestly, I still think I was in the right space because I needed to have those experiences to lead me to where I am now. So there's no regret there. But truthfully, it's like that was just the stepping stone. So how often are we just on that stepping stone, but we don't look to actually hop to the next one? Because we're trying to be what everybody else is in the space that we are. We don't see that we actually are meant to expand beyond this. That this is not the final step for us. So, do you know who you are? Are you being called to reconnect with that person? If there was one answer to your problems or your blocks or whatever it is, that's the question. And then your answer to that is the answer. Are you in alignment with yourself? Do you know who you are? Are you living the authentic version of you? Or are you the conditioned version? And no shame. For real, no shame, because we all are. We are all always shedding these layers and these labels that have been given to us throughout our lives. I'm still doing that all the time. I'm still recognizing spells that I am under and having to break them. I love referring to these beliefs as spells because it's true. You're under a spell. And I also read in the book 4 Agreements, which is a really good book, by the way, if you want to pick it up, that words have power. And they do have the power to put a spell on other people. Now, it's up to us to say, I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to accept what you're saying. I dismiss that. I do not receive it. But truth be told, our words really do have power, not just when we speak them over other people, but when we speak them over ourselves. And so what are you saying? And what is the spell that needs to be broken? What are the parts of you that aren't you? Because it's what you learned in childhood or young adulthood or through your marriage or through your job or whatever. You fill in the blank. But are you you? Are you your authentic self? So what I'm talking about today is really everything that I needed to learn. And I'm still learning. Truth be told, I want to just say that, like, I am forever a student. I am consuming podcasts right along with you. I am reading books that inspire me and teach me new things all the time. In fact, I'm really good at starting a book and stopping about halfway through. Raise your hand if you are guilty of that too. It's a spell I gotta break. I gotta get over this hump. I've got to finish this book. So I have the book Mindset. I heard that be recommended on a podcast several months ago, and it's all about fixed and growth mindsets. It's a pretty basic concept, but the stories that she shares in this book are really impactful, and I highly recommend reading it. It doesn't matter what you do for a living, just in parenthood, within your marriage, within your work, within your business. Really, really recommend it. So I heard it on a podcast back in probably the end of January, and I immediately jumped over to Amazon to order it. And I don't normally do that, but I did this time for some reason. And then the very next weekend, I was in a really tough space. I was in I don't know, how do I want to refer to it? I was in the process of breaking a spell, maybe. And that's not always easy. You know, we talk about the dark night of the soul and what happens when you go through this awakening process and you start to see that things that happened to you actually weren't okay, and that this belief you've been carrying actually isn't good for you. And that doesn't always feel so good to go through that. There's a reason why we say that a healing journey is the most intimidating journey you will ever embark on, because you just don't know what's going to come up and how hard things are going to be. So when you're going through this process of breaking spells, it's almost like you have like these little mini dark night of the soul moments. So I was in one of those and breaking a spell specifically in regards to my marriage and the way I was seeing conflict with my husband, and how I actually had a fixed mindset in that space. I have a growth mindset in so many areas of my life, but I could see in this one particular area where it was fixed. And I believed this one thing, and then that was it. So I started reading that book, and I had this huge awakening. And I'm only halfway through the book now, okay? I got my awakening, and then I was like, okay, I'm good here. But I'm going to pick it back up. I'm going to finish it because I actually can see where I need to. It's important. So we read these books, they come into our hemisphere, and they give us these awakenings. But my point to all of that is, what I'm sharing with you is what I needed to learn. I needed to be able to understand why I'm not progressing in certain areas. So that's what we do as teachers and coaches and healers, is we share what we needed. That's where you start, because that's what I understand the most. So anything that I'm talking to you about on this, you better believe I've lived through it. And I understand why I had such a lifetime of experiences in such a short period of my life, my early years, because this is it. This is my purpose, is to be that guiding light for someone else. Why are you unable to get over these humps? Why is there an energetic block And do you know what I mean when I say an energetic block? Let me give you an example. You have a task on your to-do list, but every time you see it, there is so much resistance that you don't even want to look at your to-do list. That is an energetic block. You feel this energy, but you don't know why it's there. So you have to get curious. You want to throw more information on the table. I heard that phrase a few months ago and I love it. We got to throw more information on the table. We want to figure out what's going on. We got to dive in. I've said we got to get curious on many episodes of this podcast, but it's the truth. If you want to figure out why you have this energetic block, then it's time to get curious. It's time to start asking some questions. What do you need to surrender and release? What is it about that thing that's creating this resistance to you? Everything is tied to something. Have you ever heard of the law of entanglement? When two particles, such as a pair of photons or electrons, become entangled, they remain connected even when separated by vast distances. That is the law of entanglement. So what happens is we have a scenario, we have an incident that happens, and we become entangled to it. Now, there are ways to release this. And this is where we get woo-woo. And I am woo-woo, unapologetically. Like, I see so much of how what happened on this day and time affected my decision-making on that day and time. Or this is why I have this pattern of behavior. This is why I keep repeating this same cycle. And it's because there's an entanglement there. And we have to undo that. We have to peel back those layers. And there's many ways you can do that. You can do that in talk therapy. You can do that in some sort of energy work. I prefer Reiki. That's what I use in my practice. And clearing that energy out. So you could do it on that energetic level. In fact, I feel like it has to be done on that energetic level where you are doing Reiki or something to the effect. Acupuncture is another really good one. I know so many people who have gone through years and years and years of talk therapy, and they do heal parts of themselves. But then they can't figure out why they still have this block. Why is this thing still sitting on my chest? Why do I still feel this heaviness? And it's because we haven't cleared that energy part. We haven't gone through that detanglement process. And you don't need to talk more about it necessarily to do that. Sometimes you just need to allow your body to heal in other ways. When we get tied up with things, that creates a block. And a lot of times we can't see it. I actually really did have a money block. And it took me, when did I do coaching? I think that was February 2019. And guess when? I had the huge awakening about my money block. I think it was last summer. So 2022. How about that? How about that for something? So if you feel like, man, I should be through this healing process, just know that Mandy went from 2019 to 2022 to truly have the awakening. Like, I knew my money story. I had worked through my money story. In fact, You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero, I think that's how you say her name, is great. And it really did uncover some things for me. But I'm going to tell you, we heal in layers. And when you think you got a layer healed, and then you wonder why the hell it's coming back up for you, it's because it's time to go deeper. That's all. It's time to heal that wound just a little bit deeper. So that's what happened for me. I needed to heal that money story a little bit deeper. So that's the other thing is like, we don't want to force this. You can't force. It's all about surrender. Surrender to the process and know that you're going to heal things in just the right time. And you're going to release those blocks in just the right time. Because maybe that money block is there and not lifting because you have to heal some other parts of you. And I really want to highlight this because that money block in particular if you don't have your foundation figured out and solid, like we have to have a basic layer here before we can start building on it. If your emotional well-being isn't a little more balanced, what's going to happen when you make a ton of money? Your emotions are going to say, hey, we need this, 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 and this. And you're going to blow it. So I'm not saying you have this block to protect you, but I am saying I do think that it's kind of divine. And I'm going to be real honest with you. Some of this stuff I had typed out and written out to say, and some of this is literally coming to me right now. So I am talking through this with you. Was that block divinely timed? Because it can't lift until you heal these other parts of you. Until you start taking care of your physical health, until you start taking care of your spiritual health, your relationships. What's the foundation like? Are there cracks in it? If there are cracks in that foundation, when you go to build on it, the crack is only going to get more noticeable. It's like if you give somebody a big pile of money and they are not a good person, they don't all of a sudden become a good person. If you don't have the relationship you want, if you are single and you want to have a relationship, you're ready for marriage and a family, but you haven't healed some parts of you, and you know you're going to bring this to the table and it's a toxic version of yourself. You got some deconditioning to do. You've got some soul searching to do. I'm just saying, is it time? Maybe you have this block because it's just not time. And you got to look at the foundation. Your health and wellness. Okay, you want to start a business and you feel like you're not picking up and you're not getting bookings or you're not having success that you want to see. All right, well, are you taking care of your body? Because if you're not taking care of your body and you start to get busy, what's going to happen? You think you're going to all of a sudden just start drinking more water? You're all of a sudden going to start working out? No, because now you're exhausted and you really don't have time to go to the gym. I am all for jumping in and learning to swim. Don't hold back and then create the story that your life isn't perfect enough to achieve your goals, because you just have to take one step at a time. You're meant to have these failures. Maybe you're meant to make all that money and then lose all that money because there's a great lesson there. God, that's happened to me plenty of times. It has happened to me plenty of times. Are you following me here? You have to be able to practice. Everything is a practice. Finding yourself is a practice. Meditation is a practice. Daily habits are a practice. Every day we practice. The way we talk to the people closest to us, every day it's a practice. In fact, oh my gosh, am I still practicing this? Let me tell you, I got a call in the middle of recording this and it was my son. And I kind of panicked because it's the middle of the day. Why is he calling me in the middle of the day? He had to tell me something going on in his little world. And I said, hello. He wasn't answering me. I answered the phone and all I can hear was kids talking in the background. I'm like, hello, what? And then I was like, Mandy, why are you talking to him like that? And I had to reel it back and be like, honey, what's going on? It is a practice. It is because we are always practicing, and what we practice, we do in play. If you are not practicing, then you are not going to do it when it matters. And I'm talking about all of these areas of your life: wellness, spiritual, emotional, social. Maybe you have a block because you need to get better at your practice. Maybe you keep failing because there is a lesson and you're seeing failure as a bad thing and not this is a teaching moment. I have done that too. Okay. I've done that too. But you're not going to see somebody go onto the court for the NBA and it's day one. No, there's a lot of practice involved. There's preparation. There's workouts. There's a diet, meditations. getting that foundation right. What's really important with getting your foundation right is keeping yourself centered. Because if we are all over the place in our house, you're going to be all over the place going to where you need to go. Seriously. When my house is a mess, and I mean my spaces within my house, like my closet, my office. And I say closet because, I'm recording from my closet. You should know that. If I've got clutter everywhere, which I kind of do right now, and I feel cluttered in my mind as I'm working through this. It's not that bad, so I'm feeling a little organized, but it is not what it could be. If you're a mess in your personal life and you step out that front door, you're going to be a mess walking into your spaces. You have to get yourself centered. I firmly believe that slowing down, doing meditation, having that inner time with yourself is key. Always, every day, connecting with yourself. Where do you need to set more boundaries? Where do you need to clean up some messes? Where do you need to be held a little more accountable? This is all part of that inner work. And you're not going to step onto that field or onto that stage or into that office space and really hit it out of the park unless you are taking care of you from the start. And we don't do that. Truthfully, we put ourselves on the back burner all the time. We have to take care of our kids, or we have to take care of things with our spouse, or we have this to do and this person. Somebody is always going to need something from you. How strong are your boundaries? You have to have those boundaries in place. What is that life agreement that you need to set with yourself? When it comes to the spiritual aspect, because I have mentioned spiritual a couple times, but I haven't talked about it. And sometimes people aren't spiritual, and that's okay. But if you're going to go after something, you have to be able to have faith. And I don't mean faith in the religious sense of the word. I mean faith as in belief. Belief in yourself, belief in the process, trusting perfect timing. You have to have faith that it's going to work out. Just as it should, even if it's not what you would have wanted. If you have fear of the future or fear of an outcome, that's only going to hold you back. And that's really when, if you think about it, if you're thinking, man, I would love to do all these things. I would love to write that book, but what if nobody reads it? What if I start this podcast and nobody listens? You're fearing the future. And that's a great sign to lean into your faith. And whatever that looks like. Meditation doesn't have to be a spiritual practice. I find that it is, but I really believe that you can do it no matter what your beliefs are, just to kind of come home to yourself, to reconnect and recenter. Stop worrying about what's going to happen. Stop worrying about what everybody thinks. Stop worrying about how you're going to find the people. Just take that step. Just have that faith. So let's talk a little bit about the emotional piece here. I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you are not balancing your emotions or facing things and you make a ton of money, chances are you're going to end up spending it. There's a void there that needs to be filled. And guess what? Those $300 therapy sessions at Target are really going to do it for you. But for how long can you keep that up? If you're finding that you need to go shopping because you're filling a void, then I'm going to say, really, I will always recommend therapy first. But you can also get curious with yourself and be like, what am I trying to do here? Why does this make me feel so good when I go and spend this money? Is it because you didn't have it at one point in your life? Is it because you feel like you need to get all these things so that you can be validated and seen? That kind of keeping up with the Joneses mentality? Throw more information on the table. You got to get curious. Why do you have the things you have? Is it because you truly want it? And it's okay to want things. I want things. But why do you want them? I had to ask myself, why do I want them? Why is this important to me? Does it align with your authentic self? Or is it from conditioning? Everything, the car, the house, the furniture, the knickknacks that you buy to fill the house. It's all putting more and more and more pressure on you. Because the more you spend, the more pressure you have. Because the more you feel like you have to keep up. And why do you feel like you have to keep up? That's an emotional thing. Look at that foundation. Look at that emotional piece of your foundation. Because guess what happens? When we don't look at this, when we don't look at the emotional or the spiritual piece, we start to feel it in our physical bodies. Because we know that what stress does to our bodies, we know that it causes autoimmune disease and illness and heart attacks and chest pains and all these things. But we don't recognize that that emotional wound from when you were 7 also affects your physical body. And I'm not saying you got to go out and process all of your traumas right away in order to do anything. Please do not take it like that, because it has to unfold as it should and all in perfect timing. But I am going to say that it's time to stop ignoring it. It's time to face it, at least some of it, a little bit at a time, in a safe place. Like, the more you ignore it, the longer you're going to have these blocks in front of you. When you're trying to just numb out and forget, no, there's no progress there. And it's easier. It's easier to ignore it. I love what Alexia said last week. She said, it's not that you have to do what's hard, but you do have to do what's required of you. And I feel like that a huge part of our purpose in this life is for us to grow as people, to evolve as people, but also on a soul level, to grow and evolve on a soul level. And in order to do that, we must do what's required of us. And what's required is that we don't ignore these things that we've just been avoiding for one reason or another. I don't want you to feel the shame of avoiding. Please don't do that. Don't beat yourself up. Because I really, really believe all in perfect timing. I think I actually also had this conversation with Claire last season. Claire Schmidt. Great episode, by the way, if you missed it. And we talked about that tug and pull of wanting people to begin this healing journey because they're hurting the people around them, but also understanding and honoring that their path is their path, and they will heal right when they should heal. So I'm asking you, though, I'm talking to you. If you are listening to this podcast, chances are you're on a healing journey. So what are you avoiding? If you're here listening, you are ready. It just is the truth. You're not avoiding anymore, but maybe there's things you don't recognize you've been avoiding. Where do you have to have more self-awareness? Ask the people around you. Seriously, ask the people closest to you. What do I need to know about myself that I don't want to know, but I need to know? And then leave space for them to share. And if you truly want to grow, you'll do that. You will. It's all about getting to the source of what's happening and being willing to make the changes. And you have to do what doesn't seem easy. Remember, you got to do what's required. You want to hit your goals, you got to do what's required of you to hit your goals. And sometimes that's hard because you got to wake up earlier and you got to stay up later and you got to spend more time studying something or researching something or creating the content or going to the therapy session. You know, like if it's about marriage and that's what's required right now is going to a therapy session, then you got to do it. Sometimes there's resistance with the spouse. Like one wants to go and the other doesn't. Well, what's the fear there? And can you just focus for a second on the fact that you're healing a foundation? Because you've got your foundation, your individual foundation, and then you've got your foundation together that you've come together to build upon, to build a family on, or maybe if you work together, whatever it may be. You got to heal your foundation. You got to heal your foundation together. You got to find where those cracks are. Where are the cracks? If you've got blocks, if you've got things that you've not been able to accomplish, then chances are you've got some cracks. You got some spells to undo. You You got some beliefs to rewrite. And guess what? That's the most exciting part. Truthfully, like, I look back at my journey and I'm like, man, what a ride. What a ride to sit and review and reflect on the lessons I've learned is just like, man, God couldn't have done any better in teaching me that. Even those really hard moments, really. But what is trying to block this from happening? You want to move forward, you got to address that. And remember what I said in the very beginning. How connected are you to yourself? How well do you know you? And I'm going to give you a little hint there too. Human design really helps with that. It really does. It's why I use it in my practice. Because a lot of times I'll pull up a chart and start saying some things and people get emotional. I have gotten emotional because we think that these parts of us are not okay. And it's really just maybe we've been operating in the shadow side of it and we just got to tweak a couple things. But really, you were made to be exactly who you are. And we got to shed that conditioning so that you can step back into that. I'm like talking and not in my head. I know you can't see me. I'm not recording video or anything, but it's like, I'm not in my head because I want you to know, yeah, this is it, man. This is it. Dive into you. Start that journey. And if you're listening to this, if you're consuming anything, free content, paid content, maybe you already have a coach that you work with regularly, like, yeah, keep going because you'll get there, and don't put a timeline on it. Do not put a timeline on it. I have an open-ended agreement with my clients. Like, listen, you're going to book with me at whatever frequency we decide until you realize or you feel it's time to move on. Because you cannot put a timeline on it. There are a lot of coaches that'll do like a 6-week program or a 12-week program. And I bet that you get a lot out of that. I'm not knocking it at all. Like, at all. But you then put that pressure on yourself, like, okay, I'm paying this. I got to be able to figure this out in the next 12 weeks. Like, that's hard. Don't do that to yourself. Take each little step, if it's a 6-week program, 12-week program, whatever, and go into it knowing that you're going to be a little better than you were when you started. Don't put all this pressure to have it all figured out. Don't do that to yourself. I'm just saying I operate a little differently in my practice. And hey, if I'm noticing you're not making any progress, I'm going to call you out on it. So I'm just saying that too. I know I got my clients listening. They know. I'm going to tell them. It is my job to be honest with you. That is the truth. I do have to be honest. If I'm like, hey, why aren't you doing this thing that you said you wanted to do and you ain't been doing it? Okay, we got to figure out the block there. What's the story you're telling yourself? A lot of times when we're not doing these things, I've already said this, but I feel like I'm going to say it again. A lot of times we aren't doing these things because there is a spell, there is a block, and you got to figure it out. And that is the funnest part. How about that for a little sing-songy? I'm done here. You know what? I'm done. I'm done today. Okay. I do love you and thank you so much for listening. And I'm going to say what I say every time. Well, first I'm going to say this. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it. Please share it. I would love you so much. Sometimes that's all it takes is somebody highlighting something that they really enjoyed about an episode and uploading it to their Insta story or Facebook or whatever it may be, and giving me a little tag. My Instagram handle is @lifewithmandy_, and you can find me on Facebook too. It's Lionheart Coaching Co. LLC. And I have a group on there. I don't post a ton in it, but I do have a Facebook group if you want to join and hop in on that community. There's some good content that I threw in there last year that you can still reflect on and look at. But the big thing that I want to say, that I say every time, is you are loved and you are appreciated and you are valued. All right. Bye for now.